Whatever you are creating has to tie to a metric, to a performance indicator.
If you have somebody curbside pickup versus go into the store, then you're fundamentally reducing friction, but you're also reducing the chance that they see another item that they like. So,
Getting the right person at the right place at the right time to drive revenue. It all became revenue driven.
So, why do companies often fail at creating frictionless digital experiences?
I think they are trying to create and implement all at the same time.
every product manager has a KPI that they're trying to improve, and generally speaking, at least in an e-commerce brand, it's going to be conversion. And that conversion rate that you're blindly pursuing means that you're not necessarily thinking about the full experience.
I'm like, you don't even know what problem you're solving for. This is not simple by chance. This is simple because someone spent a lot of time to make it simple.
Hey, Nick, what do freight trains, fancy trousers, and customer experience all have in common?
All things I didn't expect to talk about today, except for maybe one of those.
Exactly, and that's why this episode with Mehdi Rizvi is such a must listen. Mehdi's led digital transformation and operations at brands like Ralph Lauren, Tiffany and Company, and Funko. And in this conversation, he's challenging everything you think you know about frictionless experiences.
Yeah, like what happens when you build curbside pickup but kill your impulse purchases, or when AI tools are running wild but your team doesn't even know what problem they're solving in the first place.
And spoiler alert, that's not innovation. That's expensive confusion.
Mehdi lays it all out. Why strategy has to start with understanding the current state, how disconnected KPIs lead to broken customer journeys, and why this is a brilliant idea doesn't matter without any clue of what problem it actually solves.
He also shared one of the best visuals we've heard yet. If you roll a ball through your organization, does it come out the other side? If not, you're not ready to launch.
And we go deep on AI too. What's hype, what's real, and how AI should be used to empower employees, not just toss out more pilots that go nowhere.
Oh, and don't miss the Amazon story. Let's just say it ends with Mehdi not needing his confirmation and a very stylish neighbor possibly walking off in his trousers.
It's a mix of hard truths, operational wisdom, and laughs you don't want to miss.
So if you want to learn how to build really sustainable, scalable, frictionless experiences, let's get frictionless. Now, your career spans operations, supply chain, and retail. How did you transition into digital transformation and frictionless experiences?
I think about 20 years ago, a lot of companies were focusing on in the supply chain work. And then we working at companies like buying born chemicals and plastics, FMC chemicals, etc. We were all like, trying to cut costs, but that's a race to the bottom line. And I think that was the first time when one of the senior partners came to work and said, we need to speak to our customers, right? And then find out what do they want? What are they struggling with? Which was sort of a little interesting in the very old economy world when we were really, really focused on sort of more everything was operational efficiencies. And that was my first path into or experience into sort of saying, you know what, it's not just about us, it's about the whole journey, the end to end experience, and what are we really doing for the end client, right? And I'm talking about specialty chemicals loading onto a freight train and getting to somebody on time. That was the world. It wasn't about a website or an app or anything like that. It was a massive 2 mile train going cross country to get to some place on time so the customer would be able to produce, take their soda ash and produce detergent. And then this journey sort of continued from during my consulting days, and then finally, most recently, sort of was picked up by Ralph Lauren, and they started off with sort of workforce management. And workforce management was initially, if you think about it, it's employee scheduling, payroll management, hundreds of millions of dollars, very, very cost view of the world, right? It's all about cost. And we said, this is not sort of the way we want to look at this. How do we turn this upside down on our head and start looking at delivering experiences, you know, from the employee side and to the customer side, getting the right person at the right place at the right time to drive revenue. It all became revenue driven. So I think I spent the first half of my career very sort of in the efficiency space. And then all of a sudden, I use sort of, supply chain demand and supply world to sort of pivot over to a very revenue focused side. And that sort of got me into, I would say, in the last 15 years, into frictionless experiences, customers, for employees and customers. And then from there, we kept building from workforce management to task management execution, everything on a revenue focus. But it was like, even if you want to deliver an experience, how do you actually deliver it? What are the building blocks around it?
So something that I've been, I guess, philosophically thinking about a lot, actually, since our Adam Candela episode with Duncan, he kind of brought up an interesting concept that business KPIs and frictionless experiences don't necessarily commingle. If you create a frictionless experience so frictionless, you're going to stop maybe adding to the cart for additional items, or maybe you stop a customer from being able to go into the store because it's a frictionless experience. Like curbside's a good example. If you have somebody curbside pick up versus go into the store, then you're fundamentally reducing friction, but you're also reducing the chance that they see another item that they like. So how do you see those two concepts blending? Because it's something that to me is kind of shaking me up a little bit on how you define what a frictionless experience actually is, and is it truly the best thing for business KPIs?
From a business case perspective, and this conversation has come up rather many times, is the think about cannibalization, right? When you create two different paths, am I actually reducing my revenue? But I believe the net present value of all your channels combined, all your journeys, is greater than what it is today. You're in good shape. So if you're online in the store, you get the best experience possible. I think you give up in certain places, you do. There are ways of getting the customer to crisscross or to cross shop, but whichever journey they're on must be the best that you can offer.
So, one of the things you believe, Mehdi, is that foundational operations matter as much as, if not more than, technology. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. And I look at the foundational world as if there are multiple layers to your foundation, right? So, and let's take technology aside. It's uh, it's let's start with strategy. You really want to know what you want to do, right? I think that's key. I've heard this conversation many times. People are like, let's just do something. No, you're going from A to B, right? That's the fundamental definition of strategy, is A to B. And you need a mastery of A first, which is your current environment, to get to B. So some people say, are you an out of define me an out of the box thinker? And I'm like, I'm not an out of the box thinker. I'm very much in the box thinker, because I'm wholly and solely focused on what's happening in the organization today, from the processes, the total blueprinting of the processes, understanding all the journeys. And I break journeys out into, do would a customer employee love it or hate it, right? The frequency of those journeys, all the structure of the organization, the roles and responsibilities, the skills of the people, and the partners that you're working with also are very, very key, as more and more companies are getting very, very extended, right? All of this and staffing. Who is where? Like, how many people do you have? So anytime I'm doing sort of working with a client, I sort of break all of this down. And last but not least is culture. These all are all the components that I am looking out at, and then deciding, and which one of these, if you say data insights, implications, start, stop, continue, all of these components, which one of these are going to start, stop, and continue to really get to be. And technology is just another lever in this whole space, right? But if all of these other components that I mentioned, I believe, if they are not in concert with technology, you will not be able to deliver or sustain.
So, why do companies often fail at creating frictionless digital experiences?
I think they are trying to create and implement all at the same time without actually taking a step back. And I break this word out into sort of, you can call it sort of like, what is the idea? And then how do I actually get it done? You can call it information or transformation, use any buzzwords. But in my world, when I'm talking to someone, I said, when you're innovating, right, the culture, you must need to have a culture. If you're solving a problem, are you engaging the organization bottom up? And if you're doing something big, right, for a larger transformation, usually that goes top down. So companies don't have mechanisms built into their organization, especially go bottom up, which are the problems which are solving the issues today. They are more focused on sort of going top down, which are usually the bigger, shinier things, which are more of the opportunities rather than the issues. Corporate strategies are typically very, very top down, but business strategy, which is how we operate, are usually bottoms up for the most part. And then how do you then take this idea and then break it out into the components, right? Of saying, okay, this is my problem. And using the word, is it a problem? Everybody uses opportunity, right? No, you have a problem. It's actually quite quantified. And if you had your business processes mapped out, you would easily be able to understand what the quantification of this problem is and then how it's impacting your revenue. How is it impacting the customer? Number two, they are unable to connect the dots. In the more modern world, in a frictionless experience, people, process, and tech have to be connected. It's about connecting the dots. From a skills perspective, you need to have employees in your company that know that they are dots to connect. There are many, many folks out there who are very, very siloed in their thinking, and you can't deliver a phenomenal customer experience by working just in your own department. And I use technology agnostically. It could be from even Excel, systemic, AI, Gen AI, whatever it is. And then what I'm seeing many times is like, they're like, oh, I'm implementing tech. I was just on a client with the other day, and I was telling her, if you're ever in your office and then someone says, this is literally the first conversation with the head of the company is like, if someone in your office says, oh my God, this is a brilliant idea. I said, run, run. They're like, right? Follow up call. The first thing the person goes, isn't this a great idea? And it was a tech related solution. I'm like, you don't even know what problem you're solving for because they haven't really defined their foundations clearly.
That's really interesting. And I think something that ties in heavily is the larger the organization, the bigger this is going to become a problem. And the main reason I'm saying that, partially from experience of being in a large organization, but seeing it time and time again, where you have a product management organization that gets insanely granular down to the widget that exists across many different features. And every product manager has a KPI that they're trying to improve. And generally speaking, at least in an e-commerce brand, it's going to be conversion. And that conversion rate that you're blindly pursuing means that you're not necessarily thinking about the full experience. You're thinking about what your specific contribution is to the conversion rate, the business KPI. And this kind of taps back in on the first question I asked you, which is just about whether or not frictionless experiences and business KPIs are actually mutually exclusive or not. And I think that I'm going down this like philosophical tailspin over here. I really am. Like it's just this weird concept that I don't really know how to define frictionless anymore because of the disconnection. But you're really hitting it in a really sharp spot, which is to say you need an end-to-end operation that understands whether or not all of those components are creating a frictionless experience. And if they are not, then it's not necessarily going to be better for the business because frictionless experiences create a more loyal customer base as well. So,
Now, I just got off a call before this with a client, right? And we were talking about a spec sheet for a product. It clearly shows how disconnected the organization is. You launch a new product, everybody is fine and dandy, but nobody connected the dots to find out when my customer actually wants something. My specification sheet is ready. So when they walk away, they can actually remember what they discussed. And this is a $30,000 item. And the information is 6 months old. They've gone to the website. From the website, they've come to the store. They've had you win, you've won. They've come in the store. You have them. It doesn't get better than this. They've had a conversation. You've delivered a code, and now you have nothing to give to them. Traffic in the store went up. My new product, I can even map you in a store and say, you came and you stood in front of this. I can even record in my thing that, yes, I had a conversation, I created an item and I created some numbers. But the customer says, I just want this one little thing so I can remember it because I've asked for 10 different things and they just walk away. People aren't thinking, to your point, they are thinking siloed. And each person, if you ask the web person from this particular product, did my traffic go up? They'd be like, yes, right? They're happy. People are clicking on it. The head of store sales be like, are more and more people coming into the store? You're like, yes, right? But you're like, what happened right here? There's like a laugh smile. Like how did you forget about it? Because no one is actually thinking through it. Now, this process has been happening, you know, 50 years. But because we never documented it, as we made the change, nobody went around and was like, I've introduced something new, and here are the 50 things I need to check off. Everybody just did what they thought was right in front of them, so to your point, Nick. And this literally just happened an hour before we got on. An example, you break this out to the entire aspect of multiple products in any company, you will find so many gaps. It is unbelievable. They are just and they're not opportunities, they're problems. They're absolute problems, but there's nothing for people to say, check off, right? And a lot of folks that I speak to sort of like roll their eyes. They find these things boring. It's not exciting. But I'm like, you need to roll your sleeves up and get pen to paper. There are tools out there. Business optics is a phenomenal tool that some organizations are using to document. Another client and a friend and I were working with them about an ERP project and which ERP to select and blah. And they went straight to ERP selection. And I said, forget about your ERP selection. Is all your current state? Do people know? And they were like, no, no, we don't. We actually don't have it. I'm like, stop! Don't spend money on ERP selection and system integrating and all of that stuff. You don't even know what you're standing on today, right? Because it's all in someone's head. And when the person who's in their head goes, it's a house of cards after that. And then you hire new people who come on, and again, they're very, very tunnel vision, and there's nothing to onboard. So the other thing is staffing and training and onboarding. There's no continuity.
You mentioned shiny objects, and obviously the big shiny object right now is AI and everybody needing to add AI. What do you think people get wrong on that in terms of digital transformation?
For AI, if you look at analytics as the past, machine learning may be future driven, and AI, generative AI, sort of like creating content, right? Even like that doesn't even exist. Folks are barely getting their analytics correct. They don't even have proper data warehouse. They don't have clean data. They have data marts. And then they're jumping into AI. And I think they're looking to AI again as being more for cost option as efficiency, right? Again, I look at a technology. I tell people, look at, you need sort of the foundations first. And then they're not doing that. So you don't even have your basic data cleaned up. Another conversation, same client, they're like, oh, let's generate information, generative AI. I'm like, okay, great. Can I access your images? Oh no, that's not possible right now. I'm like, how do you want to generate content when no one can even access your content? The building blocks aren't there. And people, you go into these conversations again, we're like, can I just do this? Can I just do this with AI? I'm like, no, 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 right? It's machine learning and all are assisted intelligence tools. Let's understand, you're assisting people, you're assisting your current employees to do something better. What is it that you want them to do better? And nobody can answer that question. They just want to throw a blanket AI at the problem. But you just can't say, oh, I'm going to throw AI at this. Like, no, how do you want to help your employees? For example, I love clienteling in the specialty retail space. Every sales professional has, in the luxury space, hundreds of clients. And they have to sort of study their history. I see what Chuck is buying, what Nick is buying, and I'm like, I can see that you both like to wear darker colors, etc. You both are in medium. You shop at different times. You just had a kid, right? We know that in the luxury, like, oh my God, you have a baby, you have a boy and a girl. Now I have to manually go out and research your history and send you information, and then you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. You are a busy person, everybody is busy, people are time starved, they want personalization. We know all these facts. So now how do you take all of that and now throw efficiency into it, just efficiencies, right? And if we've done the basic tech systemization, so made it systemic, it is electronic. Now how do you apply AI to this space? And you're like, okay, wait a minute. I want AI to auto generate information that I will send to Nick and prompt it to my sales professional to sort of send out. That's an AI use case. So now, if I had to do this manually as a sales professional, I could only handle 100 customers. Tomorrow, I can handle 1,000 customers. So now I've increased, AI is helping me communicate personalized information to you, and it's actually coming from me. It is actually coming to me. I am reviewing it, I'm seeing it, I'm hitting the submit button, and I'm sending it.
I think that really hits on a point you said before, though, is they don't even know the problem they're trying to solve. And then that also leads into a problem Nakul Goyal was talking about when we talk about minimum viable product versus minimum lovable product. Too many brands stop at that viability, and then that's just the live version.
Great point. Whatever you are creating has to tie to a metric, to a performance indicator. At least in the operation world, you can easily tie it to performance indicator. If you're saying I want to reach out to 1,000 people, you can easily tie it to that. I did it. And if you have the right analytics, you can figure out that out of those 1,000 people that you reached out to, how many responded and then how many bought. It's super easy. But if you look at it in a very crisp manner, it's easy to do. But what I see is a lot of folks just do something, but it's not enough to move the needle. It's not enough. It doesn't tie to the performance indicator. And the minimum viable product usually just becomes what IT can deliver. That's one. Number two, the rest of the organization has not even been considered in the delivery of this. No one has discussed training. No one has discussed staffing. No one has discussed the skills required to operate it. No one has discussed product management, right? Of like, now, okay, now who is even looking at this information when it comes on? How are the vendors, again, in the extended ecosystem, part of this journey when something goes off or right or continuation development? What happens? You create something and they're like, oh, I got something. And you're like, oh, okay, you got something very little. It's not ready for prime time. Years and years ago, I worked at Cablevision, and Rocky Bowler was the head of the contact center, and he taught me a very, very valuable lesson. We were doing something ready to go live. It was a triple play for cable. The first time, the voice over IP. And he's like, Mehdi, if I take a ball, I start at the top and roll it all the way down, and it goes through the whole organization, will it show up at the other end? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, you're not ready. He goes, I know the voice over IP portion works, but if I throw a ball at the top, you need to let me know it went through every organization and without a problem and it came out at the other end. I was like, no. He's like, then we're not ready for lunch. I've never forgotten that lesson.
So let's talk about somebody who gets it right and is in creating, frictionless experiences. You told us a story about Amazon. What do you think Amazon gets right?
They are truly looking, in my opinion, from a customer lens. And they're doing whatever it takes to make sure the customer is happy. If it wasn't for Amazon reducing the delivery lead time, we'd still be a week to get stuff to your home. They changed that game completely. We would still be telling people 4 to 5 days. They brought the physical to your house. I totally believe it. It is anything that's on Prime. I live in New York City. So if I order something today, by this evening, sometimes it's at home. Like, that blows my mind. It literally blows my mind. There's something small. Now that's the happy path. When you want something and it shows up, what happens when you go off that happy path, and how does an organization address that, right? Everybody, we all map out sort of like the best case scenario. I got something, it's available, I delivered it, thank you very much. Now comes, I didn't get it, and it blew my mind away. I ordered something for my daughter, and it didn't, for the first time, it didn't arrive. It didn't arrive. I finally went through their site and I found out a way to escalate the problem. Put it in, and they said, please wait 24 hours. We will re-deliver this item. And I'm like, wow, okay. They knew the minute I said, it wasn't like, can you verify this? Have you done this before? Have you checked this? They know from my order history, right, that I'm not a fraud customer, right? So that's playing into their algorithm. And I said, yes, in 6 years, this is the first time this person's ever complained instantly. It didn't arrive the next day. I called up and I'm like, a company like Amazon, oh my God, this is going to be like calling the IRS now. I'll be a hold forever. Yeah. You're like thinking, like what? Imagine my expectations. I'm like, Amazon, millions of customers all over the world. There are issues happening everywhere. I'm sure there's stuff, right? They're just a numbers game. Two rings, somebody picks up. Somebody picked up the phone at Amazon, asked for my name, no order number, and you're sitting there 9995632. You're like, need a drink of water now, can't see, take my glasses off. Right? Like, what's your name? Phone number. Are you ask I said, and they asked me just which product I was talking about. And I said I didn't receive it. And the gentleman goes, would you like another one? I'm like, yeah, please. And he's like, fine, done. He goes, anything else? That's it. It was so simple, right? I called up another company the other day, a hotel, right? They had double bill me. The first thing was, do you have your confirmation number? Oh, okay. I'm like, I'm Mehdi Rizvi. You have all my information. And you mean to say you like don't know when I've told you when and where I stayed. We need your confirmation number. And I'm like, oh my sweet Jesus. Now I'm on my phone on speaker, trying to find it. Then I'm taking my glasses off. I've gotten to that stage, you know, and I'm like, okay, hold on. Here it is. And you're like, you just said it. It was simple. It was so simple. When something went off the happy path, it was simple. But this is not simple by chance. This is simple because someone spent a lot of time to make it simple.
On your confirmation number, something that absolutely gets me like through the walls is when they say, "Oh, can you get your confirmation number?" And you say, "Oh, I give me a second, I'll look it up." And they say, "Well, we can look by your phone number instead." Why didn't we just start there?
To your point, but it goes back to somebody, they have put the work in. They have spent a lot of time, and they said for every single aspect of this touch point of this conversation, this is what we're going to do. And I am sure what I experienced wasn't how they started off, but they do have the other part of this world, I think, where companies is there's the MVP, but they don't have the processes or the systems and the culture and the staffing and all of these components to learn for day two. Even the financials around this. If I spend 10 minutes with a customer on a call, what am I making out of this? If it's just easier for me to say that if this is flagged as a non-fraud customer, just give it to them, right? And you solve it at the back end. And then you take it down to the performance indicators of missed deliveries and say, okay, now let's open this box up. What companies do is they make the missed delivery problem your problem on the call. You're like, no, 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 this is right. Like, no, why am I solving your problem? You go solve your problem. My problem is I need my package. But another retailer I called, well, I don't know. Well, are you sure? Did you check with your neighbor? Like, you want me to go and ask my neighbor if he got my package, right?
Put out a next door neighbor. Did anybody get
Yeah,
my package?
package. Yeah, meaning like, did you check with your neighbor? I have there 10 apartments on my floor. And if I lived in a house and my neighbor got my package when they're wearing some really nice trousers and they are not giving those back,
So, Mehdi, what's a widely held belief about building frictionless experiences that you fundamentally disagree, that you think people get wrong?
putting themselves in the shoes of the customer or the employee. And I think people said it, but this is the first mistake. Treat thy neighbor like you treat thyself, right? They are not thinking through the most basic thing. It's like, what are you really trying to deliver? And you also have a brand. You can't be everything to anyone, but what do you want to do to deliver your experience? And a brand is 1,000 gestures. And then how is that gesture then goes across? People are getting caught up in these terms, omni and this and that. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Get rid of all these buzzwords out there. Define your journey, define the experience that you want to give, and then think it from a customer's lens and then go deliver it. Think of same thing from an employee perspective and then go deliver it. And then onboard the entire organization of saying, what's your North Star? These things all happen, these conversations, in one part of the organization. There are three things that and this is Simon Shemek said this, is for an idea to go well. So, Chuck, to answer your question maybe a little bit better, sort of bounced around, is it has to be culturally relevant, it has to be customer centric, and it has to be inclusive from an organizational perspective. And if you have these three things, most ideas should start to work. At least you've gotten the base foundational started off. Then you have to do what I like is the operational roll your sleeves up work, right? So companies aren't doing this. Things aren't culturally relevant and they aren't changing their culture, right? So the culture has to change. It's not customer centric, and it could be customer, employee, even partner, your vendor partners, the partners, it has to be centric to them too. And then nobody knows about it. It's very, very pie in the sky and it never comes down. The top idea never comes down. The bottom idea doesn't go up. My first job was in a can manufacturing factory in South Chicago. And Glenn Huey was the plant manager. And we were doing an improvement, aluminum cans. This plant was horrible. It wasn't doing well at all. And he went to every single mechanic and he goes, tell me a list of things you want me to solve. And he got a list from every single mechanic in the plant. And he fixed every single one of them. We went from number 20 in the nation in efficiency to five. There were 20 plants in the company to five just by solving the employee problems.
If people want to reach out to you and connect with you, what's the best way to find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's usually the most best way they can call me.
All right. Well, with that, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Frictionless Experience. If you've not subscribed to our newsletter, please remember to do that so you get more detailed hits on some of our episodes every other week. And be sure to reach out and connect with me and Nick. I am on LinkedIn at Chuck Moxley, and Nick is
In Paladino.